Welcome to a radio related video. This is a little tutorial video and I will try to explain in the simplest term possible for a shortwave listener what the WWV geomagnetic indices mean. So at 18 minutes past each hour, WWV broadcasts information that is very useful for the shortwave listener, and we will listen to the broadcast here.
16 hours, 18 minutes, coordinated universal time.
Solar terrestrial indices for November 7th follow. Solar Flux 102 and estimated planetary A index 10. The estimated planetary K index at 1500 UTC on November 8th was 1. Space weather for the past 24 hours has been minor. Radio blackouts reaching the R1 level occurred. No space weather storms are predicted for the next 24 hours.
And here we had a basic information of WWV. So every 18 minutes past the hour you get this information. It's updated about every 3 hours, and basically if you listen late afternoon you'll have more recent information. Here in North America, if you listen around, I would say 2100 hours UTC, you'll have the daily information for the day. And well, what does it mean and how can you use that information for your shortwave listening? The first information that they gave out is the solar flux. The solar flux is basically the quantity of radiation sent from the sun to the earth. It ranges from about 60 to 400. The number that WWV broadcast gave out is 102. 102 is not bad. It's a nice little solar flux. What do you want? You usually want higher solar flux, the higher it can be. I've seen solar flux of 300 and 350 in very big solar activity, solar maximums. So basically that number you wanted the highest possible and preferably above 100. Propagation tends to be good on shortwave when that number is above 100. And when it's below 100, well, you'll see that higher frequencies usually don't propagate as well. So keep a lookout for that number. When it gets high, usually propagation does improve a lot on shortwave. And when it's below 100, propagation will not be as good, especially on higher frequencies. And also in the winter time, when there's really long nights, having a higher solar flux will usually give us better propagation during the evening and night. When it's low, usually you'll see that the maximum usable frequency is much lower. So solar flux preferably above 100. The highest possible is often pretty good. The second number that they gave out is the planetary K index, which was 1. Now the K index is basically the disturbance of the geomagnetic field around Earth. You want this number the lowest possible. 1 is really good. It means that the shortwave propagation should be pretty much at its peak for the solar flux that we have today. I would say when it's below, it's 1 or 2, it's not too bad. Starting at 3, you start to see the effects of the geomagnetic activity, and signals tend to have a little flutter and be weaker. So the lowest possible K index. If your K index is above 5, forget it, shortwave is not going to be that great, especially on east-west paths. But it doesn't mean that if the K index is at 8 or 9 that you don't have propagation. Sometimes what it does is that it closes propagation to east-west but will enhance propagation to the south. I've seen moments with K indexes of indices of 4, 5, or 6, where South American stations would come here in North America with really amazing signals, but you wouldn't hear anything else. So you want it the lowest possible, but if it's high, take a listen. Something unusual might be happening on the bands, and you might be hearing countries you don't hear usually, especially if they are south of your location. But the lowest possible is the best for the K index. Radio blackouts is for R1 to R5. Radio blackouts means that in the past, for example, the broadcast here said R1 level, means that there was some slight degrading of shortwave reception on the daylit side of the Earth from time to time due to some little solar activities, probably some small flares, degrading just a little bit for a few minutes. This indice, you wanted the lowest possible. Once again, R1 is okay. R2 starting to get a little more. Above, when you get to R3, R4, R5, means that there were some really high radio blackouts. And basically, I've actually witnessed a few times radio blackouts that were pretty high, R2 or R3 level. And when big solar flares erupt on the sun, actually, and you're listening to some shortwave broadcasts on the daylit side of Earth, usually what you'll see is that stations disappear or get really weak, and that is the effect of solar flares actually degrading the ionosphere. So R1, the lowest level, and you want to keep it as low as possible for the R1 usually. So and one little fact that they didn't mention here, but that they will mention sometimes, is solar radiation storms might actually happen. Solar radiation storms usually go hand in hand with solar flares on the sun. The sun is very important for shortwave propagation, and that's one factor that most people don't know when they pick up a shortwave radio for the first time. They just, think that, okay, I've listened to this station today, I'll hear it tomorrow. That is not always the case, especially when they're weak stations. Propagation changes all of the time. So, what do you want? You want highest solar flux possible, above 100 if possible. You want to have the K indice the lowest possible, 1 or 0. It can be 0, so 1 or 0, the best. 2, okay. 3, 4, or 5, starting to get a little problem in propagation there. And well, of course, radio blackouts, you want them as low as possible, so the R1 level is the lowest. You don't want it higher than that. So hope it helps you understand that when you listen to the broadcast on the 18th minute on WWV, what it means and how to actually use that info for radio listening. So today, solar flux 102, not bad. The K indice 1, pretty good. And R1 for the radio blackout means that today should be pretty good for shortwave listening. And of course, at the end, they give the little forecast of what's gonna happen in the coming 24 hours. So if they say no solar weather storms or whatever are predicted in the next 24 hours, keep in mind that this is probably a good sign for shortwave listening. So today should be a nice radio listening moment, unless things change. Keep in mind that these indices are a few hours old most of the time. So what happens is you might have something changing. For example, even though the indices are nice, doesn't mean that there couldn't be a solar flare suddenly on the sun. And in the next 15-20 minutes, half hour, everything could degrade and become bad. Same thing, the K indice is for the past activity. It is updated, I believe, every 3 hours. So having the latest indice is the best way to know what's going on because solar geomagnetic storms can actually happen almost any time, depending on the physical actually on the earth you have the geomagnetic field that points either north or south or in between, and this can actually open up a moment of geomagnetic activity and actually give a higher K indice. So I hope I'm not too technical here, but just keep in mind the only thing you need to know: the lowest K indice possible, the highest solar flux possible, and of course the radio blackout indice of R1, which is the lowest possible. If you got these, you got basically great conditions most of the time. So that's all you need to know. If you have any questions on what I just mentioned, please let us know and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And of course, any comments are always welcome. It's always fun to have feedback from everyone. So take care. Hope you enjoyed this video. And if you enjoy these videos, you can click the subscribe button at the top of the video, where you'll be informed of all the videos, because I tend to post at least 10 to 20 videos a week on this channel. So it's a good idea to know when new videos are available. So thanks for watching 73s.